Doctors discovered something inside a girl who had been pregnant for 10 years when they saw it. A woman who has been in a coma for over 10 years has given birth, according to reports. Leaving your loved one in the hospital while they are admitted is often a concern to the family members, as severe cases of sexual assaults and a lot more events do take place, especially in cases of people who cannot speak or reveal about the abuse. Authorities in Arizona in the U.S. have launched a sexual abuse investigation as they try to establish how the woman became pregnant and who fathered the child. AZ Family reports the patient, who is not being identified, has been in a vegetative state for 14 years after nearly drowning. But the news channel said last month she reportedly gave birth to a baby at a nursing facility in Phoenix. The woman, who has been in a vegetative state for more than a decade, delivered a baby boy last month. In a message through their lawyer this week, her traumatized loved one said the youngster had been born into a loving family. They also said he would be well cared for. Their comments came as detectives served a search warrant to obtain DNA from male employees at a U.S. healthcare facility. Authorities in Arizona have launched a sex abuse probe to try to establish how the woman became pregnant and who fathered the child. A patient at a Hacienda Healthcare Center in Phoenix is believed to have given birth to the boy on December 29th, AZ Family reported. A source earlier told the news site that none of the staff were aware that she was pregnant until she was pretty much giving birth. The source added, "From what I've been told, she was moaning and they didn't know what was wrong with her." In a statement this week, John Michaels, who represents the woman's family, said, "The family obviously is outraged, traumatized, and in shock by the abuse and neglect of their daughter at Hacienda Healthcare." He added, "The family would like me to convey that the baby boy has been born into a loving family and be well cared for." CNN reports that the woman is a member of the San Carlos Apache tribe. The tribe's chairman, Terry Rambler, told a news station, "When you have a loved one committed to palliative care, when they are most vulnerable and dependent upon others, you trust their caretakers." It is alleged that access to the new mom's room has been restricted following the birth, despite her needing round-the-clock care. Other heightened safety measures are also thought to be in place. Meanwhile, male staff members at the facility have been asked to give DNA samples as part of the police investigation into the incident. Hacienda Healthcare said it welcomed the DNA testing. Earlier this week, its CEO Bill Timmons announced his resignation, which was accepted unanimously by the center's board of directors. Gary Orman, executive vice president of the board, said Hacienda will accept nothing less than a full accounting of this absolutely horrifying situation, an unprecedented case that has devastated everyone involved, from the victim and her family to Hacienda staff at every level of our organization. According to The Guardian, he added, "We will do everything in our power to ensure the safety of every single one of our patients and our employees." Hacienda Healthcare said it would continue to cooperate with Phoenix police officers and other investigative agencies. Certainly, the tragedy that occurred in Arizona may have been avoided if the facility had been better regulated. In fact, this was not the first issue to arise there. A 2013 complaint alleges that an employee made sexually explicit comments about patients. The employee was eventually fired, and Hacienda Healthcare promised the state that it would implement measures to prevent abuse. Clearly, those measures were not sufficient. What happened to this woman in Arizona is not an isolated incident. Instead, it is another example of the pervasive issue of sexual assault against people with disabilities as well as Native women. As we continue as a society to address the issues surrounding sexual assault, whether through activism, legislation, journalism, or professional regulations, these efforts must be inclusive of the most at risk and the most often overlooked. The probe is ongoing. People with all disabilities must be supported in engaging in healthy sexual relationships to the greatest extent possible. Notably, this must include ensuring that people with disabilities receive comprehensive sexual education. This was hard to believe, however, we believe in miracles. A woman who went into a coma following a traumatic labor 7 years ago has astounded doctors by waking up. Daniela Kovacevic from Serbia gave birth to a baby girl Maria in 2009, but lapsed into unconsciousness after developing deadly blood poisoning, sepsis. The 25-year-old from India in the northern part of the country remained in a vegetative state for years, becoming one of the country's longest surviving coma patients, but has stunned medics by waking up and meeting her daughter for the first time. The young girl is now 7 years old, and in one particularly heartwarming image is seen cuddling her mother, who appears to gaze back in wonder. It comes after the youngster kept an almost constant vigil by her parents' bedside. After school, Maria's close to her mama every day, a family friend says. She comforts her, makes her laugh, and does not give up the hope that she will touch her and embrace her. Now, doctors in a German rehabilitation clinic based in Pforzheim says she has advanced to the point where she can hold a tablet and pen in her hands, as well as sit up and follow conversations. The progress is a result of extensive physical and speech therapy that stimulates brain cell function. Serbia's Republic Health Insurance Fund approved a 3-month stay in the facility, but rejected further requests because there is no adequate code of the disease. As a result, her family are trying to inspire donations from well-wishers who can alleviate the financial burden. Specifically, the family claim they need a further 50,000 euros for the treatment to continue. These are minor recoveries, but Daniela is much better than before, her father Georgia Kovacevic said. She has put on weight, she is more aware and more alive. She reacts, smiles, and gets angry. The recovery of 3 months which she has undergone so far is really short, her father added. A man who breaks an arm needs more than 3 months of recovery. Imagine how much time my daughter needs. That is because you were essentially teaching a kid to do certain things. She had very hard training. She walked 800 meters and that is a big achievement. Relatives have recently started a collection for Daniela's treatment, but they fear it will not be enough. Mr. Kovacevic added, "They organized a competition in Taekwondo and all the money they gathered was for Daniela's recovery. They gave us 10,000 euros, but we need 50,000 more." Meanwhile, Daniela's paternal grandmother Mary Vesna told Serbian magazine Blick that one of the biggest financial costs is perhaps surprisingly diapers. "We manage as best we can. She needs her diaper changed every 3 hours each day plus food and medicine. The money people donate can help us gather ourselves and focus on her care." A GoFundMe page which shows she has achieved $50 of the 50,000 goal adds further detail of the young woman's plight. A description on the site says, "Having fallen in love, she decided to give birth to a child at the age of 17, but she got sepsis during childbirth and her heart stopped beating for around half an hour." Thanks to the persistence and knowledge of the anesthesiologist Dr. Stanislav Milovanovic, Daniela won the first battle for her life and her heart started beating again. Since then, she has no conscious communication with the environment. She can see but does not recognize anyone. She can walk only with assistance. She can move her arms but not the hands. She is unable to speak or feed herself. A separate Facebook page adds, "Maria is already 7 years old and is still waiting for her mom to wake up and play with her." This hard truth changed this woman's life forever. Brie Duval, then 25, who is from Australia but living in Canada, was out with her friends when she fell from a 10-meter retaining wall outside a rooftop bar and crashed headfirst into the pavement on the 29th of August. She was flown to the University of Alberta Hospital with a brain injury and several broken bones and placed in an induced coma. Doctors gave Duval only a 10% chance of survival, but her parents refused to allow the hospital to turn off life support. 3 weeks later, Duval started slowly making signs of improvement, and 3 months after the accident, she woke up. But she experienced amnesia and did not begin to remember her life before the accident, including her fiancé, for another 2 months. Duval was then handed back her phone and tried to get in touch with her partner, who had not been to visit her since the accident. "I opened my phone going to message him when a message pops up from this woman that says I'm now with partner's name. I have moved him out. He's now living with me and my son. Please do not contact him," she told the Mirror. Duval's partner, who has not been named, had also blocked her on all his social media accounts. She said, "I've not heard from him since I've been in hospital. He's completely and utterly left me in the dust, so I don't even have closure as to why this happened." Duval also spent her recovery without her parents, who were denied a request to leave Australia for Canada to see their daughter. Australian citizens were not allowed to leave or enter the country during the height of COVID-19 restrictions without special permission. "Canadian doctors told my mom that I had a 10% chance of surviving and that she should get over to Canada as soon as she could because things weren't looking good," Duval said. "This was in the peak of COVID, so in Australia you weren't allowed to enter or leave the country. My mom and dad went to the government and asked for special permission to say goodbye to me as things were bad at that point. They refused them, would not give them a chance, and they would not give them a reason. They just flat out said no. So my mom told doctors in Canada to keep my life support on and do not under any circumstances turn that off, which they had to medically abide by." She added that seeing her parents would have helped massively with her recovery. Duval has since moved back to Australia to be to close family and friends. She said, "Seeing them would have helped. I struggled heavily, had a near-death experience. I was confused, scared, and I would quite literally cry every single day. It was definitely something I never want to live through again, and I don't want to be apart from my family again." Duval was kept company in hospital by her best friend Sam, who drove an 8-hour round trip every weekend to see her and Sam's mom Sandy. She said, "Sandy used to come and visit me every day as she lived in the city. She'd made sure I have everything I need as I didn't have my actual mom with me. She'd stay for hours, play board games, and keep in contact with my mom. She was right in the thick of it. Duval has been sharing her recovery from the traumatic brain injury on her TikTok channel. She said, "It's been very hard mentally. There's definitely a bit of PTSD from everything that has happened. I'm just trying to sort through my emotions, going through the accident and then having that letdown of a relationship. Getting back to normal life, just trying to establish what my new normal is. I couldn't swallow when I first woke up. I've had to try and learn how to walk again from my waist down to my toes. It just feels like it's gone dead. All my muscle was just completely lost as I was laying in bed. It's frustrating not being able to do the things I want to do. My mental clarity is nowhere near where it used to be. I've got brain fogginess. Having a TBI is kind of like having a concussion symptoms that's continuing. They don't go away. It's a struggle because the thing is, you're not visibly disabled. Like visibly, you'd look at me and think I was in perfect physical and mental health. I don't look like I have a brain injury, but it's a huge part of my life. I'm struggling every single day to function and do simple things that I used to do." Another victim struggles with what happened to her. Ebony Stevenson said, "It sounds awful now, but I asked him to take her away as I was so confused. A woman went to bed with a headache, fell into a coma, and woke up 4 days later having given birth to a baby girl. Ebony Stevenson, 18, had no idea she was pregnant. The college student had not developed a bump, experienced no morning sickness, and never missed a period. After going to bed feeling unwell on the 2nd of December, she was rushed to hospital and placed in an induced coma before waking up on December 6th to discover she was a new mother to a baby girl. She had no idea she was expecting, as she had a condition called uterus didelphys, thought to affect 1 in 3,000 women, which means those affected are born with 2 uteruses. Her unborn baby was hidden in one of those 2 uteruses. In Ebony's case, only one of them had a fallopian tube to carry an egg, while the other had none. Her chances of conception should have been slim. After suffering a series of seizures, the student was rushed to Royal Oldham Hospital, Greater Manchester, and placed in an induced coma. Medics performed tests and discovered she suffered from preeclampsia, which had caused the seizures, and that she was pregnant. They told her mother immediately, explaining that the baby needed to be delivered right away. 3 hours after her first fit, Miss Stevenson underwent an emergency cesarean on Monday, 3rd December, and gave birth to a baby girl at 1:32 a.m. The baby weighed 7 pounds 10 ounces. Ms. Stevenson is now adjusted to her surprise motherhood and is enjoying bonding with her daughter named Elodie. The first-time mom from Oldham, Greater Manchester said, "I didn't think I even wanted kids, at least not for another 10 years, and never expected to be a young mom. Waking up from a coma to be told I'd been pregnant and had given birth to a baby girl was overwhelming, to say the least." She described meeting Elodie for the first time as an out-of-body experience. "I was worried I wouldn't bond with my daughter because I had no time to get my head around her arrival, but I think she's amazing. It's an absolute miracle. I wouldn't change Elodie for the world." Ms. Stevenson doesn't remember anything from feeling ill with a headache until waking up 4 days later with Elodie. Thankfully, her mom Sherry, a 39-year-old stay-at-home mom of 5, could update her on everything. Sherry said, "At around 10 p.m. that night, I heard Ebony shout down to me that her headache had gotten really bad. She started being sick, so I rushed her to the bathroom, and before I knew it, she was having a seizure on the bathroom floor. I rang 999 immediately. She'd never had anything like this before. In the first 5 minutes it took the ambulance to arrive, her daughter had 5 more seizures. When paramedics treated her, they asked her if she was pregnant. Despite me insisting she couldn't be pregnant, the paramedics were certain she was, and to my shock, a bump had appeared at her stomach," Sherry said. They think the ferocity of the seizures could have caused the baby to move, making it suddenly visible. Ms. Stevenson was rushed to Royal Oldham Hospital near Manchester, where she was sedated before being rushed for an emergency cesarean that same morning. "It was a strange moment because I had no time to prepare for it," she said. "I was over the moon that she was happy and healthy, but couldn't help but worry about my own little girl who remained in a coma." On December 6th, Miss Stevenson finally opened her eyes, and it was only then that she learned she had 2 uteruses, one of which was continuing to menstruate and the other was growing her baby girl. "When I woke up, I remember the nurses telling me I had a baby, and before I knew it, they'd put her on my chest," said Miss Stevenson. "It sounds awful now, but I asked them to take her away as I was so confused and sure they'd made a mistake." Neither Miss Stevenson nor her mother had any idea she had 2 uteruses, but this allowed her to continue having regular periods throughout the pregnancy, disguising it even more. Despite this, Sherry said that her daughter has taken to motherhood brilliantly. "I'm so excited to wake up and see her every morning and to get to spend another day with my precious little miracle," Miss Stevenson said.